Sri Anurag Behar, sir, welcome to you, Chief Sustainability Officer of Wipro and CEO of Azim Premji Foundation, an MBA from XLRI and BE Electrical Electronics. He is on the board of Wipro G Healthcare Limited and Terry University, serves on various government and industry councils such as National Mission on Teachers and Teacher Education. Has been recognized by World Economic Forum as by being a young global leader. Welcome to you, sir. Happy to have with us a theoretical physicist by academic qualification, Professor M D Srinivas, and a leading expert on the area of Indian knowledge system. Welcome to you, sir. Happy to have another icon of contemporary India, Sri Shankar Maruwada, co-founder of and CEO of X-Step Foundation, a philanthropic mission co-founded in 2015 with Nandan and Rohini Nilekani to improve basic education for 200 million children in India. Sri Shankar is a member of the National Steering Committee tasked with developing National Curriculum Framework and is also a part of the UNESCO UNICEF Gateway to Public Digital Learning. He is an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur and IIM Ahmedabad. Welcome to you, sir. And yes, and also very, very pleased to have with us Professor Manjul Bhargava, a familiar face to us by now, but it's a pleasure to introduce him. Canadian-American mathematician of Indian origin, known for contributions to number theory. Currently, Brandon Pratt Professor of Mathematics at Princeton University. A recipient of multiple global recognition, including Clay Research Award of 2005 and one Leonard M. Eleanor Blumenthal Award for Advancement of Research in Pure Mathematics in 2012. He became the inaugural recipient of Simon's Investigator Award. It's a pleasure having you, sir, Professor Manjul Bhargava. We are also pleased to have with us today an Indian of global recognition and a multiple Grammy Award winner, Sri Ricky Kej, with us. May we invite you, sir, to be on the stage. On this occasion, we are also very, very honored to have the presence of an inspirational Professor Manjul Bhargava and a inspiration to all of us, the Honorable Mother of Sri Professor Manjul Bhargava, Srimati Bhargava. We are pleased to have you with us. I welcome all my esteemed colleagues to this assembly. This is about 40-45 minutes of interaction. We are here to understand what makes a global university. I remember in one of those earlier interactions during envisioning, I remember a phrase by Sri Anurag Behar which said, a university is a place to embrace the universe. In this context, may I request the esteemed panelists to kindly share very briefly as to what makes a great university, after which the session will be open for interaction. May we start with you, sir, Sri Anurag Behar.
So good afternoon, namaste. Yeah. And as you realize that I am completely unprepared. I think I made an error by sitting here. Because if I sat there, maybe I would have been the last. Some of us have met before. And as I have shared with you before, I've had the privilege of helping set up one university in Bangalore. We are setting up a second university in Bhopal, which should be operational this July. So we are admitting students. And we are then setting up, we've just now got the Azim Premji University Jharkhand Act also has been passed by the Jharkhand legislature. So we'll be setting it up in Ranchi. And in fact, the Ranchi University is perhaps going to be our biggest university. We have this lovely land there and it's going to be very big. And as all of us know, that region of the country requires this kind of service much more than other places, right? That entire eastern region, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Bihar. So, as I've said, I can only share the mistakes that I have made. You know, I can't, because if I say that this is the way you should do it, every time I say anything like that, I can only remember all the mistakes that I have made in the past 13, 14 years. And I'll just say one thing and then I'll sort of hand over the mic, which is one of the mistakes that I have made, which I think one should try avoid as much as possible. It's not possible to avoid it completely. Is when you start considering that should we do this or that. That word or is a problem. If one is trying to build a good institution, whether a university or any kind of institution, it is never or, it is always and, right? So it has to be and. Speed of your construction, which is remarkable, has to come along with quality, right? Speed and quality go together. You can't say I will have speed or quality, right? It's a very simple thing. You want to become a big university. We want to become a big university. Big means size. I remember Manjul and I sitting in Dr. Sridhar in the morning, sitting in the nights in ICTS and saying, how big should universities be? So finally, I think we came up with number of 25,000. 25,000 minimum should be a campus, right? This is the NEP days. So we want to be big. But while we want to be big, can we drop academic rigor? We can't drop academic rigor. In my view, it is never about teaching or research. It has to be teaching and research, right? It is never about freedom, academic freedom, or control or whatever. It is always academic freedom and control, and the control could be self-control. It's self-driven accountability and responsibility. So I think the issue of, so it's like in our university we struggle against this. It's never faculty or management, right? It's always together. And I think I talked about this when we had met last. So in my experience, this word or has to be banished, and the word and has to be embraced. Thank you.
Namaskara. I am even more an intruder. I happened to come to Bangalore for some other meeting, but Chanakya University people have been gracious enough to call me today to meet all these eminent people here, Manjulji, etc. Just on global university, I think about 8-10 years ago, our former president, Pranab Mukherjee ji, said that India had done great things in education in the ancient period, but something like Nalanda or Takshashila we have not thought of in modern times. There is an eminent professor in Gujarat, I think he was somewhere in America for 20 years. He has worked on this Takshashila, Nalanda, Odantapuri. We are awaiting his book, but there are half a dozen videos on YouTube. You could search Shashi Mehta. The wonderful thing that he found was that the evolution of university in medieval Europe was crucially influenced by the Indian model of a global university, that Takshashila, Nalanda, Odantapuri, something in Bangladesh, which was very big, I mean today's Bangladesh, that it went through Central Asia, this model. They set up a Islamic university, which then went to Italy and then to Oxford, Cambridge, or whatever you know. And even the model, the courses, the universality of the university is an Indian model. So we can, if his book comes out, I think we'll have full documentation of how India is the sort of innovator of this global university concept. Now, of course, in modern day world, outside of the West, it is China, which is doing these Confucian institutes, which are set up in many, many university campuses all over the world to spread the Chinese civilization's achievements and their future ideas for the world. And India has to come up with something. And we are all very glad and proud that this idea has been seeded here and in various other places. The Panchapran that our Honorable Prime Minister mentioned last August had this idea that we should celebrate our heritage, we should come out of the colonial hangover, and there are various mechanisms made to bring in what Indian knowledge has been, which has been sort of banished out of the academic, regular academia for about a century and a half or more, is coming into both schools and universities, thanks to the national education policy that all these stalwarts have drafted, and they are leading this movement. I'm very glad to come and see this, and I hope Chanakya, who was associated with Takshashila, will enervate the spirit of this university also. Namaste. Thank you.
So I'm even less qualified than the previous two speakers, and certainly much less than the next one. I have not studied in any university, and so neither have I worked in a university, neither have I set up in a university. So I'll just share my experiences and hope that is of some help. I've studied in two institutions, the Indian Institute of Technology and the Indian Institute of Management. What I learned from these two is shaped a lot of my life. So, and as I reflect on that, what appeals to me is the two parts of global university, the global and the university. A university is always as much known by the faculty as by the students. And whenever you meet anybody from a university, you expect certain things out of them. Whether it's a teacher or a student, right? That to me is the final output. Whatever the university might say, might do, is important, but the end product is what the students do with that. The end product is what the faculty does with what the institution puts into them. So if you hear that somebody is from X university, you expect certain things. If somebody is from Princeton, you expect certain things. If somebody is from Harvard, you expect certain things, right? So what is it 20, 30, 40 years later when somebody meets a student of Chanakya University, what is it that we want them to think about? That to me, and when you think 2062, when 63, when many of us won't be there, the world will be a completely different place. How do you prepare for a global university which will produce results in 2063? That's a leap of imagination. Which brings me to my second point, which is I have built organizations. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I build organizations. When you're building an organization, a watch out for any organization is being constrained by what it has, being constrained by what it is now. And I call it fried by reality. It's a danger. But instead of being fried by reality, can you be fired by inspiration? Can you be fired by what would that 2063 specific thing look like? Can you be fired by what you want to become? Can you be fired by everything around you that can conspire to help you become what you choose to become? And I found this approach allowing me to think big, dream big, be global in ambition, be universal in empathy. And it has at various points made me decide on certain course of action which is counterintuitive, right? As Anurag said, embrace the and, not the or. So I wish Chanakya University all the best, and I wish I could share more wisdom with you. I don't have. So those are my two things, which is what would the world of 2063 look like, and what would Chanakya University have played a role in that? And second is always ask yourself, are you fired by inspiration, ambition, or are you fried by the reality of what you see around you? Thank you.
Namaskar. It's really wonderful to be with you all. So what makes a good university? I agree with what everyone has already said. There's sort of three pillars, I think, that are very important for a university to really achieve excellence. And those three pillars are outstanding research, outstanding teaching, and outstanding service. These are the three things that we want all faculty and all students to aspire towards. Outstanding research is very important because if you're not in an institution that is creating knowledge, then you cannot graduate and go on and create knowledge. So you can't have outstanding education without being in a place where knowledge is being created. So that's very, very important. So outstanding research. Outstanding teaching, of course, goes without saying. If there's an outstanding teaching going on, both from faculty to students and among students between themselves, students should aim to teach each other as well. Everyone comes in with different talents. You spend a lot of time with your peers, and so students can really teach each other as well. So outstanding teaching both from faculty and from students to each other is very important. And then, of course, to be able to live a meaningful life, learning the value of service, what we can do with our education when we get it here. How do we tell the students how to use that knowledge that they gain here? So having a culture of service, both within the community and outside the community, while you're at the university, is very, very important for both faculty to lead and for students to lead. So these three pillars that are sort of equally important, three pillars of a good education system at the university level: outstanding research, outstanding teaching, and outstanding service. And there are three properties of these three pillars that are very important to achieve for these three pillars. One is that it should be very innovative. We shouldn't just take a directive from the government and say, this is the syllabus. There should be constant revision of syllabus, bringing in new things, bringing in new ideas for pedagogy, bringing in new ideas from research, bringing in new knowledge from around the world and incorporating it into research, teaching, and service. So innovation, constant innovation, is very important to keep the place vibrant and current. Multidisciplinarity, another property that should be brought in all through research, education, and teaching. Understanding connections between subjects, something that I'll talk a lot about later. But all subjects seeing the unity of subjects and the unity of tasks and how they can each help each other is very important. That multidisciplinarity is very important. And that was one reason that Anurag and I and Dr. Sridharji were talking about. The university has to be big in order to be able to achieve that multidisciplinarity. So that's why size is important, so multiple talents can come in and work together to achieve this multidisciplinarity. We've seen this model of good research, good teaching, good service with multidisciplinarity and innovation for thousands of years, starting with Nalanda and Takshashila, where Chanakya was, all the way to modern times with the Ivy Leagues. So there's one more property that I want to emphasize. We can't just copy the Ivy Leagues. The Ivy Leagues are doing amazingly, but we can't just copy them. We have to make them in the context that we live in here. So rootedness in India, making sure that, okay, we're copying those aspects, good research, good teaching, good service, with multidisciplinarity and innovation. We should copy those things, but we have to do it within the Indian context. And that's why the final property I wanted to say, which Chanakya University has so beautifully embraced as an idea, is rootedness in India. We have to make sure that we're doing all those things within the Indian context. And so I think if we get those three pillars with those three properties, that will make for a great university, and I think Chanakya University is on that path, and I hope it stays there and achieves that excellence. So thank you.
Yelrigu namaskara. So since I'm a musician, first of all I'm going to say that I agreed with everything that everybody said, but I'm going to speak more in terms of music and the arts. So I believe that, in my life, from the time I was a very young boy, it was very strong in my mind that I'm going to be a professional musician, and that's all that I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But of course, I've got Indian parents, and they were very against the idea. My father being a third-generation doctor. So he had, so after a lot of fighting with my father after my 12th grade, my father and I had come to a compromise that I would have to finish off a degree in dental surgery. And once I finish off that degree, my life is my own, and he would never question me again for the rest of my life. So after that, I went to 5 years of college, dental college. At the end of 5 years, I did not know anything in dentistry, but I got a degree. Okay, and I gave that degree certificate to my father, and I told him that dentistry is a very noble profession and it's a very important profession, but it's not for me. I want to be a musician, and I became a full-time musician after that. So since then, what I've been doing is that I've been wanting to give back to society, and I've been wanting to get into the education of the arts, and I'm very, very thrilled that I've gotten this opportunity with Chanakya University. I'm extremely grateful to Chanakya University that we are in absolute alignment when it comes to this. So I wanted to speak more from the arts because I've been traveling around the world, going to universities around the world when it comes to conservatories and when it comes to the arts. So the first thing would be that since in India and the Indian context, as Professor said, is that one is that the families of the students have to be absolutely convinced that this is the right career path, and this is the responsibility of the university, I believe. So I believe that the university needs to provide the infrastructure, needs to provide the future prospects, and needs to provide an overall holistic view towards the arts, so such that the parents and the families are absolutely convinced that this is the right career path. The second thing would be that uniqueness, as you mentioned. I absolutely agree with you that there are conservatories all over the world, there are music schools all over the world. What is it that we are providing that is unique? So we have to dig deep into our roots, find out what is it that makes us sufficiently unique as being Indian, and we have to provide an education like that. Of course, taking models from around the world, that is extremely important, education models from around the world, but apply that from a true Indian sense. The third thing that I realized is that when it comes to the arts in specific, most artists that come out of universities everywhere in the world end up becoming very delusional artists. They believe that, that if you make good music, everybody's going to listen to it. Or if we dance well, everybody's going to come to our, recitals or to our events. That is not the case at all. So one has to have a very holistic view towards the arts. Every artist has to be not only an extremely skilled artist, and we have to absolutely ensure that every single person who comes to a university is a skilled artist. Comes out as a skilled artist, but also they cannot be delusional. They have to be an entrepreneur. They have to have leadership skills. They have to know how to sell themselves. They have to know how to present their work to the world. And lastly, it is extremely important to give back to society, and I think the arts has a lot to give back to society with all the problems that we face on our planet, like climate change, species extinction, air pollution, plastics pollution. They say that we have a triple planetary emergency, so many social issues that we face on our planet. I believe that, everybody at some point is aware of all of these problems. Every single person, human being, is aware of all these problems, maybe not at an analytical level or a scientific level, but everybody is aware of these problems, but nobody is taking action. So the problem is not about awareness, the problem is how do we convert awareness to action, and that is where artists can play an extremely important role, because artists can take this complex scientific data and analytics and convert it into the emotional language of the arts and music, so that you're hitting the hearts and souls of people and you bring about change. So I think our university, that's going to be extremely important to ensure that everybody is socially responsible, sensitized, and understands the problems that we're facing in this world, and uses their art and applies their art to make this world a better place for everyone and everything. So I think these are the points that would make a very, very good university, especially when it comes to the arts.
See, the service you talked about, one of the main pillars. So it is an institutional building, or the community as a whole we have to look at? What do you mean by that? So the three pillars you spoke, one is the service also. The service is institutional building as a service you are looking at, or community as a whole we are looking at?
Yeah, both. So the question is about the three pillars. How does one achieve them? First of all, the way the university is set up, incentives have to be given for all three. That's very important. Faculty should have incentives to be engaging in all three. Many universities make the mistake that they only give teaching assignments, and there is no sort of salary or promotion incentive for doing research or for doing service. So incorporating that in the way the institution is set up, both in the courses for students and the incentives for faculty and students, that's very important. But then most of the initiatives for these three pillars have to be, of course, taken by the faculty and students themselves and the community. So I would say the answer is both, all of the above, okay, in order to achieve these three pillars.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
What exactly we mean academic freedom, and do we need a boundaries or a framework to create, to make sure that the freedom is not out of control in the specific word that you mentioned?
I think it's useful if we see it very simply, which is that what questions to ask or what questions to seek answers for, that should not be restricted. In my experience, trying to convert everything, every notion, every abstract notion that we talk of, converting that into an operational thing is always helpful, because otherwise these becomes very, high-flown notions which all of us will agree with, but when it comes on the time to implement, So I'm sorry, I'm taking so much time because, as you can see, I've been burnt many, many times for many kinds of things. So I must also mention one more thing, which is that, you see, what happens is that, let's say, our university, once you've recruited somebody as a faculty member, then you should trust your own recruitment process to say, well, this person that we've recruited, his or her own interests are aligned with that of the university. That's why you recruited her. Then you should not have this, oh, this person should not be doing research. If 30% of her time is supposed to be in research, why is she doing it on that? Well, you recruited her, so please let her do whatever she wants. So I hope that is a specific enough answer rather than general.
How do you tangibilize a world-class university? Are there any tangibles that we can refer to? Number two, how do you build a cultural and creative sustainability in universities? Today we are the first batch, everybody has been handpicked, everybody knows everybody, but over a period of time when the faculty base has a huge geometric progression, then how do you believe that this culture and the creative sustainability can seep through the entire system of the university?
I'll answer the second part. Ultimately, in any institution, university, organization, the culture is what we do on a day-to-day basis. It's invisible. There are many components of it. It is the day-to-day practices. It's also the stories we tell each other. At the end of the day, a culture is a set of stories we tell each other. It is reflected in day-to-day life through the practices, right? It cannot be what we want it to be. It is invisible yet real. It is a kind of a set of statements, yet it is daily. You live it daily, right? So what kind of stories are being told in any university? What kind of practices do I see in the university? That is the culture of the place. So it is a fallacy that I can create a culture. I am that culture, right? The leaders, the faculty, everybody has to be a part of living that culture, believing that culture, right? And that's my experience.
Actually, it's tough for me to answer that question, but I would say that taking examples from other universities that I've actually visited and the good examples from there, I feel that the intake of students and the intake of teachers become extremely important. The pipeline of how you select, because as soon as it becomes a numbers game, because I've seen some amazing music conservatories and art conservatories which were really amazing, and then later on they started playing the numbers game. And then that is where the quality started coming down, where anybody pays the $45,000 a year, are admitted. And then basically you have students who are at different levels of expertise who are entering the university, and the teachers don't seem to care after that. So I would say that the intake of students become extremely important. I'll give you an example. Like at the Boston Conservatory, which I consider to be the best for Western classical music in the whole of America. The thing about the Boston Conservatory is that they start looking at students. They admit students when they're about 16 or 17 years old, but they start looking at students when they're about 8 or 9 years old. And not like training them like how you would do for the IITs and all of that stuff. They just have them at the top of their radar, that these kids are really good musicians, so maybe when they turn 16, they'll make good students of ours or whatever. And it's the same with the teachers. The teachers are so passionate. The teachers are so passionate and they're so carefully selected that the cultural environment and as you said, the creative environment is always, top notch, and the constant feeling that, that we have to be absolutely unique all the time, and we have to provide not only a level of education, but also a perspective to education that nobody else provides. So I think it is obviously effort which has to be constantly maintained, and it needs to be constantly drilled in, it needs to be constantly kept in our mind, and we have to be constantly conscious about it. I think that is what is going to be. It's going to be a very, very strong effort, actually. That's what.
A university is known and its interests are best taken care of, not merely by faculty or by the management, it's by the students, because they have the tag of the university. And the alumni who go out, they are all through known as people who are the product of this university. And this feature is a very important feature to keep the university keeping a very high standards. So we have to involve alumni. It's a new university, so but this principle I think is very important. This is a modern principle which was discovered in the West about 100 years ago. That it's the alumni who will sort of have the interest of the university most, and that they have the tag of the university. The faculty come, the faculty go, the managements change. So we sort of keep track of our students and keep them involved in our progress. This is the only suggestion. I am not administered or managed any university, so I cannot say anything.
On a very lighter note for your first question, and this is a joke, okay, so for the first question, I think that how do you figure out if a university is actually great, is that if a billionaire is ready to fund a building to get their child in,
World-class university and culture. How do you maintain this or continue to be culture? So my first plea to all of you is, don't try to become a world-class university. Although the session is about world-class universities, don't try to become a world-class university. It's a very misleading direction. I mean, I think you should try to become the best of what you can. Don't worry about, world-class universities. That's my earnest request to all of you, right? The second is on the culture. You know what is common between doctors and teachers, or doctors and educators, most of you? We in education, all of us in education, and doctors, we are notorious. We are notorious for believing that we can't be managed. There is no management required. We have all, the life of the mind, and we can. It's a huge problem. Huh? Such excellence or such culture to maintain that excellence can't happen by accident. It cannot happen by accident. But if you go to universities, and all of us, all my colleagues, we have a very under appreciation of the importance of management. When I say management, I don't mean management as in an individual. I'm talking about the process. In this place, since Professor Sridhar is the chancellor, my guess is that won't be there, right? But what do I mean by that? To maintain this culture that you're talking about, I think three things are necessary. There are many things, but three things I'll point out. One is there's a critical importance of processes and systems. Processes and systems are absolutely central as you are growing. Whether it's a process and system of recruitment, induction, just the daily meetings, weekly meetings of your department or whatever, right? I think the process and systems are so critical, and my colleagues all the time keep saying that, oh, we don't have time, we are so busy. This is more important than whatever busy you are with, right? So that's one. Second is, and the second one is very obvious. The second one is that the critical importance of, let's call it the pioneer group of leaders. Whatever is your pioneer group of leaders, 5 of them, 10 of them, 8 of them, I think they need to be completely together working as a team, and also they must be completely aligned to the purpose of your university. If that is not there, then it's a recipe. I'm talking about any university. It's a recipe for disaster. Third, which I feel is the most underappreciated in this entire thing in our universities, is the importance of, and I will particularly use a phrase, I don't mean it literally, the importance of middle management. Now, what do I mean by middle management? What I mean by middle management is, and that's why I'm deliberately using that phrase, what I mean by middle management is that when you have assistant professors, young career track, who is mentoring them, who's supervising them, right? And if you think of mentoring and supervising the assistant professors or lecturers, whatever, you can't have one person mentoring, supervising 25 of them. The ratio can at best be 6, 8, 10:1. Now, whether that person is a professor, she's a dean, whatever be the designation, that's not a material issue. But those 6, 8, 10 people, 12 people group, who is supervising, mentoring them, eventually from a university context is super critical. And the problem is that I don't think this is given enough importance in universities, because we look at the great universities of the world, whether it is the history of Nalanda Takshila or the Cambridge, Oxford's, Bologna's of the world and say, oh, well, it's like this. This critical importance of this, what I am calling middle management, is underappreciated, and also it's very difficult to find that middle management. Because what happens is educators, they are outstanding researchers, they may be brilliant teachers, but they're not necessarily good supervisors and mentors. Not necessarily. So finding those, what I am calling middle managers, is going to be very crucial for any university to be able to scale up, right? And like I promised, I convert everything into operations. So please forgive me for that.
I know, some things you wish never end, but that's an amazing kind of clarity we had. Hope it could continue. But considering the major event we have for the afternoon, we are compelled to bring this to a close now with due permission. We gratefully acknowledge the presence of Sri Prakash Belavadi amidst us, the renowned theatre person. We welcome you, sir. On this note, thanking all the panelists. Now, considering their presence, we'd like to appreciate their presence by presenting this token of our gratitude to the esteemed panelists. Request the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Dongre, sir, to kindly present our token of appreciation to the panelists. So, photo. Sushant, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you to all the esteemed panelists today. We deeply appreciate your presence and contribution. Thanks to the Honorable Chancellor and the Honorable Vice Chancellor and my esteemed colleagues for their presence.